influence. So Satan slaps, God gives you $20,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like that argument just kind of falls back into itself for exactly the reason you stated.
Mm-hmm.
It's because making an argument with a God that's all powerful, all knowing, all loving, and then trying to say, well, yeah, God didn't slap you, but he knew that Satan was going to slap you. He created Satan and he, for the purpose of slapping you, so that you could have free will.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think he
it kind
created
of
everything
contradicts
for the
itself.
purpose of worshiping and just being, and for the fact that he loves things. Like he just loves people and angels and things. So I don't think he created Satan with the purpose of slapping you. But in creating something that he loves, an agent in the world, is he, if he's a loving God, is he going to give the agent actual free will, or is he going to chain him to the radiator and say, you ontologically cannot do certain things that should be within your choice to make, that by any logical assumption should be in your choice to make.
Well, what I would say is going back a little, God wants us to love him, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And the whole reason he gave us free will is so that we would choose to love him.
Well, I'd say I'd refine and say the reason he gave us free will is because he loves us.
Yeah,
Not
he loves
necessarily
us
so that we
to the
choose. I
point.
mean, it's better to. I think love is more genuine when you choose to love someone. But
Yeah, but
he couldn't create us without free will and claim to be a loving God. I don't think.
exactly. So he created us, he gave us free will because he loves us, but for what purpose?
Well, that's geez, I don't know. I don't know his
Well,
ways.
I think
But
it's because
uh,
like it's kind of what you were saying. God
yeah,
didn't want us to. It's the whole reason why you're saying he created the suffering is because he wants humans to not to kind of have a choice, but so that we would. He loves us to the point of letting us decide for ourselves, right?
right. Yeah,
So he created free will to basically give us a choice.
yeah, yeah,
And what
yeah.
is the instrument that he created? Because he did create the devil.
Yep.
What is the instrument that he created to make that choice possible?
Well, what is the you mean the devil? Like, oh,
Yeah,
like
it would
free
be the
will is the
devil.
instrument he created. I mean, the choice and free will are
Well,
the same thing, but yeah,
kind of what I'm saying is that the God created the devil,
yeah,
and God knows everything, so God knows this is all going to happen. God created
yeah,
the devil fell, the devil introduced sin in the world, and now humans have a free choice to either love God or fall into sin.
yeah,
Therefore, God created the devil to give humans the choice to either follow him or fall into sin. So God
yes,
did create the devil, so
yeah,
the devil would slap you, and you would have the choice.
right, yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of where I'm going.
I mean, I agree. I agree with that. I don't see how that makes God unloving though, because not only did he create. So, if you want to leave off the end, the conclusion of the story, then absolutely that sounds like a horrible God. Luckily, that's not the one that I worship. The one that I worship knows not only that we're gonna sin, but he knows that he's gonna save us as well.
Well, I was saying that because I think that what was countered Alex O'Connor about the devil, God not being the one that slaps us, but the devil. That's why I was saying that because it's
Right.
kind of the same thing.
Okay,
God
you're
created
saying
the
it's
devil
not a
to
significant
slap.
difference between God
Yeah,
slapping
it's the
us
same.
and the
It's the
devil
same
slapping.
thing.
And I think that's what Alex would probably say. I understand that.
Exactly.
I think, you know,
That's what I was saying.
yeah. Yeah, I do understand that. I do understand that. I just it somewhat sounds like a straw man because it just leaves out this important sort of like ontological reality. One that like free will must exist for God to love his like agents, his like people that have choices. Well, they wouldn't have choices if they didn't have free will. Plus like the main role that God plays in this like cosmic story is to give you the $20,000. Like the Satan doesn't even offer you the $20,000. He just slaps your ass. Like that's it.
Well,
But I see what you're
that's the whole
like. You're
purpose of
saying, but
faith.
God knows, so God created. But like, just because God knows how something's gonna happen, well, I would say because He knows that Satan's gonna fall and Satan's gonna introduce sin into the world, and that we're gonna sin and all the rest of it, and it's all gonna be genocide and murder and rape and all the horrible things. That's why God sets up this situation to like rectify and glorify all of it eternally in the afterlife. So like the entire span of time and the earth and the heat death of the universe, whatever number time is like represents. So like say there's 10 trillion days in existence, who knows, whatever. Since from the Big Bang to the heat death of the universe, that number is still infinitesimally small compared to eternity. So anything, God can create turn any bad into a greater good, given the fact that he's operating in eternity. Right? And we're
Yeah.
told that the devil doesn't even operate in eternity. So like essentially it's like with the same stroke of the pen that he created the devil and sin and all these and hell and all these things, he's also canceling that out by finishing the paragraph. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and what I'm saying is just kind of like the logic of the Bible. I think that is just like God created the angels to do his will, right?
Yeah.
God created the angels to serve him and do his will.
Yeah.
God also created Lucifer to do his will.
Okay.
Even though Lucifer doesn't know that he's doing his will, because Lucifer isn't all-knowing,
Yep.
he's not all-powerful.
Right.
Lucifer is doing exactly what he was created to do, and
Right.
that is to give the humans their choice,
Yeah.
or give
Yeah.
give the humans almost their alternative to choose
Yeah.
between God or sin. So
Yep.
it's a fact that Lucifer exists for the exact reason God created him. Therefore, the sin that Lucifer brings, which is cancer, these evils, are exactly what God intended to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's my argument is why. There's
Okay.
it's almost an abusive relationship. It's like me saying, I want you. I don't even know if I can put this in like the correct way, but like it's like an abusive relationship
Okay.
where the husband beats their wife again and again and again.
Uh-huh.
Or let's just say that the husband hired somebody to beat their wife.
Beat their wife over and
And
over
then
again.
say, hey,
Yeah.
if I still love you, come to me. Don't worry about him. I love you. Come
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
It's like, that's very abusive. That just,
Yeah, but it would
have to-
also be but in order to make the metaphor like complete, then it would also be not only did the husband like hire somebody to beat up his wife, for one thing. I mean, it's kind of a weird metaphor, but beating up his wife somehow makes the wife a better person, more loving, more kind, more just, all the things that God wants us to be, right? Loving, kind, just.
I think we can both agree that the beating just shouldn't exist.
Well, if the beating didn't but why I can't agree that the beating shouldn't exist. If what happened, okay, then let me complete the metaphor as well. So somehow, in some mystical, magical way, the beating makes the wife more loving, kind, just, etc. And then when she does choose to come back to the husband, right? He wipes out the memory, the trauma, the horror of what she experienced. Like he literally makes it meaningless and forgettable and nothingness, which is what must happen when you take any stretch of time that someone suffered. Like I say I suffered for 10 years with cancer or something like that, then I died. Then I spend eternity in grace and peace and love. That number 10 over eternity becomes 0. It cancels out the suffering. Do you see what I mean by that?
I understand what you mean. So you're basically saying like that being heaven, right? You go to
Yeah,
heaven and
heaven.
it's all made up
Yeah,
for. But I would basically say what Alex O'Connor would say. It's like, but wouldn't you rather just get that from the go? Like you don't need the beating to have that.
I'm not sure.
And
Not sure if
and
you need
I
the
mean,
beating.
if we're looking outside in, you have one relationship where the husband hires somebody to beat his wife, and the wife comes back, and
Yep.
she's crying and everything, and the husband holds her and says, "Oh, it's gonna be okay," and
Yeah.
she forgets everything, and now she doesn't really have choices or anything, but she's happy, right? And then you
Yeah.
have the other relationship where he just doesn't hire somebody to beat her. He says, "Oh, it's okay, come here," and she's not crying, she's happy, and
Well, you know
it
what?
just-
Actually, I just figured out how to make the analogy a little bit better. Tell me if you agree with this, or if you don't, we can go back to the way it was formulated earlier. It's more like if you had a husband who loved you perfectly and gave you this perfect life, and then you chose to stab him in the kidney or whatever and leave, and go to
Hold on. Give me
Oh,
a
yeah.
second.
Yeah, okay, so it's
Go
more
ahead. I'm
like
listening.
if you had a husband, or the wife has a husband that loves her very much and gives her a nice home and basically does no wrong by her, and then the wife decides by her free will choice to leave the husband and go to an abusive ex-boyfriend, which is Satan in this example. The husband knows full well this is not, you're gonna get beaten up, you're gonna have a horrible experience, that boyfriend sucks, he's an evil person, he's Satan, but the husband's not a monster, so he's not going to chain the wife to his radiator and make sure she can't go to the boyfriend. Okay, so then when the wife gets sick of getting beat up by the boyfriend, then she comes back to her old husband and says, how can you, like, please forgive me, take me back, I don't know what I was thinking, I made a impetuous, sinful, horrible decision to leave my good husband and, run off with this abusive boyfriend. And then the husband's mercy is so great. He says, I'll take you back. Don't worry about it. I understand.
And that would make sense if the abusive ex-husband was separate and
Got
wasn't
you.
hired or created by the first one.
Hired or
I
created by
mean,
the first boyfriend. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
more biblically accurate would be that husband created or hired that ex to do the beating so that the
Yep.
wife would come back to him. That would be more biblically accurate.
I'm not sure it would be so that, but it would be, you're right, it would be more biblically accurate to say that the husband created the boyfriend. So then we're back to those two options again. Should the husband have not created the boyfriend, or should he have taken away the free will of the woman to only be able to choose the husband?
And in my opinion, a all-loving, all-knowing, all-good God would have chosen the good option, which is not having the beating
Okay.
and just having love. But we can move on to something else
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want.
Let's move. We are getting a
Um,
little. We're going back and forth a little bit. So I understand your point, man. It is a good point. Yeah, it's a great point. Any
Thank you.
other sort of
Yeah, yeah,
questions
yeah.
or
Okay.
or
Yeah.
thoughts about the Bible or anything, theology, anything?
So